despite 2 exam paper leaks. The Gauteng Radical Economic Transformation and the Zuma Support Group is briefing the media on the former president refusing to appear before the State Capture Commission. So let's take you there live.
All the people that are known to have been leading in corruption not being treated the way that Msholozi is treated. Comrades, enough is enough. We feel that Msholozi has been ill-treated and he still continues to be ill-treated. And we say that it can't be correct that all other presidents are enjoying their pensions, but Msholozi needs to eat or enjoy his pension in jail or in the deathbed. Because that's what they want to do. They want to kill him. And we are saying we cannot tolerate that. Comrades, we need to stand up. We have got a statement that we are going to issue here through our secretary, Comrade Carl. We are saying, comrades, we need to all stand up and defend the life and the soul of the ANC. We must go out and mobilize people on the ground to join the ANC in their numbers to ensure that we defend the gains that we got when we got this democracy in 1994. Unfortunately, others, they feel that they've arrived. We believe as this committee that we have not arrived. For as long as the economical power is still far away from us, is still in Stellenbosch, we are saying we cannot rest. Why are they not challenging the current president to come and explain to this Nzondo Commission what happened to our state organs? Why can't they call him to come and account? But comrades, will leave everything to the statement that Comrade Carl is going to issue on behalf of yourselves and on behalf of all of us as a collective. Comrade Carl. Manta!
Thank you, Comrade Sibusiso. I think before I read the statement, let me clarify that I'm here in my position as Secretary of the Gauteng RET, President Zuma Support Group, and also as the National Spokesperson of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association. I'm not here to represent the office of the Secretary General of the ANC. Comrade Ace Magashule will speak loud and clearly for himself, as we know him. Comrades, we thought that we should bring together, once again, a press conference which does not only consist of a few people talking to the media, but that our own comrades in the African National Congress from the branches who support radical economic transformation as the official economic policy of the African National Congress must be here to support and underline this statement that I'm now going to read out. It is a fairly long statement, comrades, but we felt that we should give you the development, the genesis of the persecution of Nkamalala over the last 20 and more years. We sincerely hope that our media who are here will allow us to read this statement and also give us enough airtime so that this message cannot just be between these 4 walls, but to the people of South Africa. We were asked many times, comrades, what do we mean by protecting Msholozi? Part of what we mean by protecting Msholozi is to make sure that the message goes out why Ubaba has taken the decisions that he had taken. There's a one-dimensional propaganda story that is being carried by many in the mainstream media, which does not convey the reasons why Nkamalala has taken this decision not to abide by the ruling of the Constitutional Court and not to attend the Zondo Commission today. I now proceed to read the media statement by the Gauteng RET President Zuma Support Group in support of President Jacob Zuma's refusal to attend the Zondo Commission, and also in support of all other comrades who are being persecuted for their principled support of radical economic transformation. The statement reads as follows. Our country is in the throes of an ever-deepening constitutional crisis due to the short-sightedness and insidious factional politics of those who have decided to declare themselves President Zuma's enemies, target him, and declare war on him. The time had come to call out those who behave in this narrow-minded and factional way, and they must be exposed. For over 2 decades, our country has witnessed the political targeting of President Zuma, accompanied by a well-coordinated, Stratcom-like propaganda media campaign of character assassination. History has no blank pages, and we cannot forget the secret meetings that the previous head of the National Prosecuting Authority, Advocate Bulelani Nguka, had with journalists casting aspersions on President Zuma on the basis of politically trumped-up charges concerning the arms deal. Nor can we forget the secret phone calls between Leonard McCarthy, the then head of the Scorpions, and Nguka that had been recorded and which had revealed that they were plotting about when to time the indictment to be served on President Zuma in order to inflict the most political damage on him. From those phone calls, it emerged that President Thabo Mbeki and the then Minister of Justice, Penwell Meduna, were also involved in the plotting, and that the timing of the persecution of President Zuma had absolutely nothing to do with prosecutorial matters. It was blatantly political. Now, comrades, I know that Comrade Thabo and Comrade Penwell probably do not like us going back into history and reminding ourselves and our country of what they had done. But let it be remembered. We also cannot forget that we know that as early as in the mid-1980s, in discussions between the CIA and British intelligence, to be more specific, MI6, there were discussions about who must never be allowed to become the president of South Africa when the African National Congress was to eventually gain power in South Africa, which in those discussions was described as inevitable, but which can be managed. We also know that as part of those discussions were members of the old Bureau of State Security. Some of them, a certain gentleman who later on became very involved in the manipulation of negotiations, a certain Mr. Marius Spaarwater. The 2 ANC leaders who identified was Comrade Chris Hani because of his unwavering and principled communist commitment, and as a consequence, the challenge that he would pose to the continuing control of the South African economy by white monopoly capital. And the second was President Zuma, because as head of the intelligence of the ANC, he knew far too much about those who had been infiltrated into the ANC by Western intelligence agencies, and whom they intended to ascend to the top leadership ranks of the ANC in order to control our movement and also the South African government when the ANC eventually was to become the governing party. We all know the terrible tragedy that befell Comrade Chris Hani when he was on the 10th of April 1983 assassinated. And we still remain convinced that the full extent of the plot to assassinate Comrade Chris and who was actually involved has not yet been revealed and must still be exposed. As soon as it became clear that President Zuma, on the back of his huge popularity among the grassroots members of the ANC and the branches, was to rise through the ranks of the ANC to become president, a vicious character assassination program and propaganda campaign was unleashed on the back of those politically trumped-up charges. It was either a case of, by hook or by crook, preventing President Zuma from becoming president, or if he does, regardless of all the plotting, become president because of his tenacity and his huge popularity, to undermine his presidency with constant and vicious character assassination propaganda. The intention was that he must constantly be on the back foot and will not be able to implement the fundamental radical economic transformation program which he was known to favor and intended to champion during his presidency. In this, sadly, they found an ally in our courts that reinstated the politically motivated arms deal charges, despite the demonstrable fact that they were trumped up and manipulated by political forces that had absolutely nothing to do with proper legal prosecution and justice. In having been an integral part of these politically motivated machinations, organs of state, namely the NPA and the then Scorpions, acted unconstitutionally. And we say this without any hesitation, comrades. They acted unconstitutionally. By allowing the charges against President Zuma to be reinstated, our courts condoned unconstitutional conduct and sanctioned the NPA's independence being undermined, with it acting as a political agent. In doing so, President Zuma's fundamental constitutional rights were compromised. In addition to this unconstitutional conduct by the NPA and the Scorpions, with our courts condoning it, the mainstream media became a willing propaganda ally in the comprehensive project to either destroy President Zuma or to curtail him to such an extent that he would not be able to implement his intended program of radical economic transformation. Only as one among many examples, may we remind the mainstream media how they kept on quoting Judge Hilary Squires when he passed sentence on Shabir Sheikh, to have said that there was a general and mutually corrupt relationship between Sheikh and President Zuma. The Honourable Judge had never said anything of the kind. Even after Judge Squires, on several occasions, protested that he had not said so, many journalists continued to peddle this fake news. Eventually, Judge Squires was forced to issue a statement pleading that he should not be misquoted. Even after the judge issued this statement, with journalist Max Dupree leading the howling pack of wild dogs, baying for President Zuma's blood, many in the media continued to misrepresent what the judge had actually said. In all of this, hardly any journalist had the inclination, or should we rather say the guts and integrity, to point out that during the arms deal negotiations, President Zuma was MEC for Economic Development in KwaZulu-Natal provincial government, and far away from the national government departments and agencies that concluded the arms deal. The arms deal was done and dusted by the time that he returned to national government when he was elected as Deputy President of the ANC. Once again, and especially with regards to President Zuma, our mainstream media, despite the investigative capabilities that so-called investigation agencies such as Amabungane boasts about, have shown that they will not allow facts to get in the way of their Stratcom-like propaganda smear campaigns. In addition to the trumped-up and politically motivated arms deal case, a totally unclear and far too narrow narrative of so-called state capture was developed to attack and undermine President Zuma and those alongside him who are committed to challenge the white monopoly capital control of our economy. Let us not forget, comrades, that the control of white monopoly capital of our South African economy is directly linked to the Western colonial and new imperialist control of South Africa as one of the most important strategic geographical locations for the defense of Western and especially the United States of America hegemony and control. Their interests and control that they have since colonial times exerted over South Africa became increasingly challenged by South Africa's membership of BRICS and the insistence of President Zuma to prioritize business as well as overall political and intelligence relations with our fellow BRICS members. The massive negative reaction by the West to South Africa's engagement with Russia during President Zuma's administration for the further development of nuclear energy indicated how threatened they felt about loosening their control over our economy and the future political direction and alliances away from the West that this could lead to. Evidently, such developments, according to them, had to be stopped in their tracks, and President Zuma had to be removed at all and every cost. In pursuit of this objective, that narrative of state capture became a handy tool. It is in this context, comrades, that the report, The State of Capture, by the former Public Protector Advocate Thuli Madonsela should be seen. Hastily and poorly written as it was, and facilitated by the then Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, whom, by the way, President Zuma was forced to appoint after the manufactured media-driven outrage against his appointment of Minister Des van Rooyen as Minister of Finance. He provided then special emergency contingency funding so that that report could come out with a singular target as President Jacob Zuma. The poor and pathetically shallow quality of the State of Capture report was of no concern. Its real intention was to target President Zuma and to unleash a process that would eventually lead to his removal as president. With this objective in mind, local white monopoly capital, international Western business and intelligence interests, and their planted agents within the African National Congress joined hands in a carefully choreographed campaign. We all remember, comrades, the South African Save South African campaign. All those marches, funded by, among others, the George Soros Open Society Foundation, which brought the most incongruent groups and thousands of whites together to march against the removal of a black president. President Zuma was forced, despite the well-known objections that he raised about the narrow definition of state capture and the short time frame that only concentrated on his tenure as president, to appoint the current Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. In a totally illegal move, Madonsela insisted in her State of the Capture report that President Zuma's presidential constitutional right to appoint the chairs of all commissions of inquiry should be revoked, on the basis of the excuse that the President will be conflicted, because he will be the subject of investigation by the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. Interestingly enough, in advancing this argument, Madonsela inadvertently revealed the real purpose of the Commission, namely to target President Zuma. And we will return later in this statement to that admission, in the light of her more recent statements a few days ago on the SABC confirming the same. For now, the point that we are making is that there is nowhere in law a precondition set that when the President may also be the subject of an investigation by a commission of inquiry, that the President's powers to appoint the chair can be revoked. It cannot be, comrades. President Zuma, quite correctly, challenged this attack on his lawful right as President to also appoint the chair of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. But sadly, once again, as was the case when the arms deal charges were unconstitutionally reinstated, our courts became the instrument of white monopoly capital and their Western neo-imperialist allies. They rejected this appeal and removed President Zuma's constitutional right to appoint the chair. That so-called right was in an extraordinary court ruling given to the Chief Justice. Now, unacceptable and unconstitutional as this situation already was, the appointment process of the chair became further compromised by the Chief Justice first informing President Zuma that he had decided to appoint Mr. Justice Desai as the chair, and then, inexplicably, within 24 hours, changed his mind and appointed the Deputy Chief Justice, Mr. Raymond Zondo. The question arises, what happened overnight during that 24-hour period that suddenly made Justice Desai unacceptable as chair of the Commission and Mr. Justice Zondo so desirable? Who intervened and why? The most critical questions are, why was Mr. Justice Zondo suddenly preferred and more acceptable than Judge Desai, who is known as a no-nonsense and fair judge who doesn't allow himself to be influenced? Who intervened and how to change the Chief Justice's mind and to effect the last-minute appointment of Mr. Justice Zondo? The manner in which Mr. Justice Zondo subsequently conducted the business of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture make these critical questions all the more relevant. His biasness towards and constant targeting of President Zuma is blatantly clear. The manner in which he called public press conferences to attack President Zuma when he was unable to attend a hearing of the Commission because of illness, while he treated Mr. Pravin Gordhan with the utmost deference and respect when he also did not attend a hearing, was shocking and shameful. Even more so, the cavalier manner in which he dismissed President Zuma's very serious application for his recusal on the grounds that he is demonstrably biased against President Zuma. In the process, Justice Zondo, by tabling a written reply in response to President Zuma's submission concerning family relations between them and other conflicts of interest, turned himself into a material witness in a matter in which he was also the judge. What a fundamental conflict. What an utter aberration. President Zuma was absolutely correct to take the matter on appeal, But before his appeal could be heard, Justice Zondo rushed the matter to the Constitutional Court. And most extraordinarily, the Constitutional Court ignored the fact that there was an appeal concerning Judge Zondo's refusal to recuse himself and ruled that President Zuma must appear before Judge Zondo. The Constitutional Court even went further to state that President Zuma may not invoke his right to remain silent and must answer all questions posed to him. A basic tenet of our Constitution is the principle that every citizen has the right to remain silent and not to incriminate him or herself. That right is not negotiable and may never be compromised. If this right is compromised, our whole legal system is compromised. And indeed, every one of us, all of us as we sit here, and every citizen in this country, become vulnerable to political manipulation. It is shocking, comrades, that the Constitutional Court, as our apex court, in the pursuit of President Zuma, issued a judgment that compromised this fundamental principle. The Constitutional Court, as the apex court, is the ultimate authority for setting legal precedents and establishing case law. Thus, the judgment against President Zuma does not only set an extremely dangerous and general precedent by taking this fundamental right away from him, but as I've already said, it also establishes an even more dangerous and general precedent by taking his fundamental rights away from all of us. Now, any citizen can, in fact, be told that one does not have the right to remain silent. For the third time already in this short media statement, and that is by no means an exhaustive list of such examples, we have now pointed out that our courts, in their pathological pursuit of President Zuma, in alliance with white monopoly capital and Western new colonial interests, acted unlawfully and undermined the provisions of our Constitution. We fully understand President Zuma's deep sense of being victimized and his outrage at the injustices that are being committed against him. As such, we wholeheartedly agree with the reasons that President Zuma advanced why he would not attend the hearing of the Zondo Commission. And again, those reasons were spelled out in the letter that was issued by his attorneys today. And again, President Zuma indicated that he's not in principle against attending the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, but he wants to wait to hear what the judgment of the High Court is to his appeal on the refusal of Mr. Justice Zondo to recuse himself. President Zuma is absolutely correct to oppose this unconstitutional ruling. As one of those leaders who played a central role in the liberation of our country and bringing about our constitutional democracy, he is indeed duty-bound to resist this insidious undermining of our Constitution. We fully support President Zuma for his courage and the highly principled position that he has taken, and we stand behind him in the execution of this decision. We agree with President Zuma that he is duty-bound in terms of his own conscience not to deviate from the decision that he had taken, that he will not attend the Zondo Commission, because he cannot be party to allowing our Constitution from being undermined and ultimately destroyed. As members of the Gauteng Radical Economic Transformation President Zuma Support Group, we are active members of the ANC. We will make it our duty, together with all other progressive forces that we are aligned to, to explain to the members of the ANC in our branches and also the broad masses of people throughout our country that there's not only one side to this story, as most of the mainstream media are trying to attack and misrepresent the reasons for President Zuma's decision, but that strong ethical and revolutionary principles inform them. In addressing these pressing issues concerning the ever-increasing persecution of President Zuma, we as members of the African National Congress, who are deeply committed to the ANC's official economic program of radical economic transformation, cannot do anything but interpret this situation in the context of the terribly divided and factional state of the African National Congress and the ANC's failure to give decisive leadership. As a result, there is a dismal failure to implement the radical economic transformation, economic policy program and resolutions that was adopted at the 54th National Conference of the ANC. As deeply concerned members of the ANC, we ask ourselves, how is this possible? That this is happening. That we find a situation where our black businesses are on the back foot and are not being given the support that they deserve. In fact, that they are being literally undermined, while white businesses and white monopoly capital are being advanced and are laughing all the way to the bank. We cannot help but to say, is this a case that this happens because some of our comrades in the African National Congress have allowed their own interests to be so intertwined with the continuation of this control of our economy by whites and by the continuing strangle grip of white monopoly capital on our economy, that they have totally turned against the objectives of liberation and full economic empowerment. As deeply concerned members of the ANC, we must raise the matter of targeting and purging of those comrades who continue to be committed to the official ANC economic policy program of radical economic transformation. And we cannot ignore this issue, comrades. Many of us, some of us even in this room, are wrongly accused of being factional or a separate grouping and are victimized and purged. President Zuma is only the highest profile and most serious victim of such uncomradely behavior, and we are fully ready to protect him. But let us also state clearly, we are also committed to defend all other comrades who are similarly targeted. We have noted with revolutionary approval that the Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association has also raised this critical issue in their media statement over the weekend. And we concur with them that we will not allow truly committed revolutionaries to be purged. I'm going to repeat that. We will not allow truly committed revolutionaries to be purged. Without them, the ANC will never be able to fulfill its revolutionary task. We certainly can no longer allow these kinds of attacks to continue unchallenged. It is in this context that we must return to the targeting of President Zuma as the real reason for the establishment of the Zondo Commission. And comrades and members of the media, I want you to pay special attention to what I'm going to say now. In a recent interview on the SABC news channel, Advocate Thuli Madonsela openly admitted that the Zondo Commission was specifically established to target President Zuma and to make him responsible for state capture. It is clear from what Madonsela said that without targeting President Zuma, there is no Zondo Commission. Yes. However, while President Zuma is undeniably the major target of the Zondo Commission, others who have committed themselves to the radical economic transformation of our country are also targeted, either by dragging themselves in front of the Zondo Commission or arraigning them in other politically motivated trials. The most prominent of these is the so-called political oversight, what a strange charge, trial of the Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Ace Magashule. Understanding this context very well, we as the Gauteng RET President Zuma Support Group will also fully support Comrade Ace Magashule at his next court appearance in Mangaung coming Friday on the 19th of February 2021. It also goes without saying, and I hope you will clap even harder now, comrades, that we will be in full force on the 23rd of February in Pietermaritzburg when President Zuma has to appear again in that ongoing saga of the so-called arms deal case against him. In doing so, we declare, Zuma is us, and we are Zuma. Zuma is us.
We are Zuma.
We also say, Ace is us.
We are Ace.
Ace is us.
We are Ace.
It is time to throw the gauntlet down. In the revolutionary language of our movement, to pick up the spear. We will certainly not allow President Zuma to be arrested.
Yes.
Nor will we allow Comrade Ace Magashule to be forced to step aside as our Secretary General. Neither of those things will we allow to happen. All these developments have now gone far too far. Enough is enough. Say it with me, comrades. Enough
is enough.
Is enough. We will not rest or leave any stone unturned until these counter-revolutionary actions and attacks are brought to a final end. Now it is us, as truly committed and revolutionary loyal members of the ANC, who are drawing a firm and deep line in the sand. Here too, and no further. Aluta continua. Amandla. Viva ANC, viva. Viva Msholozi, viva. Viva Comrade Ace Magashule, viva. Thank you, Comrade Chair.
Amandla. Long live Msholozi, long live.
Long live.
Long live the undying spirit of Oliver Tambo, long live.
Long live.
Members of the media will now open for questions. We think we are very much clear. All that needs to happen is that if you are unclear, ask a question now, because we expect you to be objectively writing and reporting around this. Can I just observe hands? Please indicate who you are, from which media house, so that we all know. You'll be number one. Number two. Okay, the two hands. Number one.
Mr. Nyao, you speak extensively about your support for former President Zuma and also the Secretary General of the ANC. Essentially, are you okay with the former president defining the highest court in the land, Constitutional Court. Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo said they would now be approaching the Constitutional Court, seeking for the former president to be imprisoned or have some jail time on the virtue that he defied the highest court in the land. What's your view as a structure on this particular aspect? And on the issue of the Secretary General, why would you link the two together in supporting them and not supporting the incumbent president of the ANC? Give the view of the unsealing of the JR-17 bank statement and other issues.
Okay. So we'll take the second one. Number two.
But coming from Regional Africa,
Sorry?
I just wanted to touch on what my colleague from there has already said. There is a development from the Zuma Commission. They see them saying that they're going to instruct the Constitutional Court to, of course, determine a sentence or an imprisonment sentence for the former president. As the Gauteng RET and also NKACA, aren't you concerned with this narrative that he seems to be driving, that the former president, who was also a former head of state, seems to have no respect for the Constitution? There also was a development from the ABC meeting yesterday. You are saying that the Secretary General of the ANC should not step aside. This is now coming out from the ANC saying that members who are facing criminal charges should step aside voluntarily. Why are you not agreeing with that decision from the ANC?
Okay, let's take two questions at a time. Otherwise I forget. With regards to the last part of the first question, I want to thank you for the correction. Because quite rightly, we should raise our concern about the issue of the buying of votes at any conference, including the very serious allegations that have been made about buying of votes at the 54th National Conference of the African National Congress. We believe that this is a critical issue that cannot be swept under the carpet. We are deeply concerned that the courts are in this instance once again used to try and cover up, it seems, what has been happening. So we add that demand to our demands. Thank you for having raised it. Thank you for allowing us to add that demand. The issue that we have to face is that there is a cloud of suspicion hanging over the head of the President of the African National Congress and other members in the National Executive Committee. The best way to clear that cloud is for those bank statements to be opened so that it can be perused, looked at, carefully investigated, and we can find out, are those allegations true or not. That is the only way that our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, and other members of the National Executive will be able to clear their names or not clear their names. But certainly, the matter of buying of votes is totally unacceptable in the African National Congress. Let there be no doubt about that. Now let me deal with the issue of the concern that President Zuma is alleged to behave unconstitutionally by refusing to go to the Zondo Commission. I've gone at length during this press statement to explain all the reasons that President Zuma had given why he feels duty-bound. In fact, as a revolutionary, he feels it is his calling and it is the integrity that is demanded of him to refuse to accept that his rights will be compromised, even if it comes from the Constitutional Court. You know, we have an attitude in this country that judges are not human beings. We seem to think that they are demigods who cannot be criticized. Judges can be criticized. Judges can make mistakes. I sat in the Zondo Commission and watched, as I said in the press statement, the cavalier fashion in which Mr. Justice Zondo just dismissed the request of President Zuma for him to recuse himself. It is certainly a mistake to take away the fundamental constitutional right of President Zuma and every citizen in this country that you cannot remain silent and are not allowed to incriminate yourself. That is truly ridiculous. So President Zuma is clear. He's doing this in defense of the Constitution, not in defiance of the Constitution. I repeat that. President Zuma is clear. The action that is taken in defense of the Constitution, not in defiance of the Constitution. He said to us, as MKMVA NEC members who visited him in a very long meeting, 7.5 hours, he said to us, I'm duty-bound to resist this because I fought for the liberation of this country. Now, I heard that Mr. Justice Zondo ruled today that he's taking this matter again back to the Constitutional Court and that he now wants a prison sentence to be imposed on President Zuma. Let me say two things about it. First of all, this confirms once again the biasness and the intention of Mr. Justice Zondo to attack President Zuma at all costs. There were other options that he could have followed, but he decided to go for the jugular. Now we see him naked, like the naked Caesar of those fables, standing in front of us, exposed by his own actions. But let us also be clear that we, as members of radical economic transformation who make up the core, who stand for the true policies of the African National Congress, and also when I speak on behalf of MKMVA, we as Umkhonto weSizwe Military Veterans Association will protect President Zuma. The media come to me and say, are you talking about violence? Do you want to have a war? And I say, why must I follow your narrative? Why must I allow you to define to me what protection and support means? We know what it means. We are not going to come and declare to you now. At the time when it comes, we will deal with it in the correct political manner. In the meantime, we are continuing to take the message out to the rank and file members of the ANC in our branches, to the masses of South Africans, that what President Zuma is doing is not a defiance of the Constitution, but a protection of the Constitution. Our members are members of the branches of the ANC throughout the country. We have instructed them to take this message out far and wide. We will not allow President Zuma's case and the intentions that he has by not going to the Zondo Commission to be misrepresented. Have I answered your questions? Or is there something more that you wanted to know?
For me, with the Secretary General of the ANC, you're saying that he must be set aside, but yesterday there was a statement from the ANC saying the criminal charges should voluntarily step aside while they without the guidelines.
Well, as far as I know, there's another constitutional principle. Everyone is deemed innocent until proven guilty in a properly constituted court of law. So why must we now come and demand from comrades to come and sacrifice themselves when they've not been found guilty? No. We don't see any reason why comrades who have not been found guilty in a court of law should come and place themselves on the political factional altar and sacrifice themselves by those who want to remove them for factional purposes. So no, we're not in favor of that call. We do not believe that those who are charged should simply and voluntarily put themselves on that altar of sacrifice. Let the court speak. Let our Constitution rule. And once that process has been concluded, then let people talk about who should step aside and who shouldn't. I'm interested that it is a selective story all over, because there are many members of the African National Congress, even in the national office bearers. Just yesterday, we heard of an MEC in the Eastern Cape who are charged, who have got very serious allegations against them. But the only one we hear about who should step aside, together with a few of those who are pro-radical economic transformation, are the comrades that are constantly being put under pressure. Why must Comrade Ace Magashula be made the target of stepping aside when there are so many others who are living in glass houses and who similarly, under that kind of approach, could be asked to step aside? No ways. We do not want cherry picking. We do not want hypocrisy. Let the rule of law govern us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Comrade Carl. You know, sometimes our history is very funny. Our media is based in Gauteng, and Gauteng is burning with corruption. You never them utter a word or a question about those. We've got life in its demand. How many questions has been asked? Who has told us about the step aside? Nobody. The PPEs, they're mum around those issues. But it's fine, we are going to work with them so that they understand and objectively educate our people. Because we believe that these are people that have been properly educated to properly and fairly report on issues. So we're still going to give you a chance. I can see we still have got Isandla Samgelo. We are welcome. We'll respond. And comrades, as we agreed in the panel here, we all respond if a question is raised. Questions are not about Carl, but are all about us. It was Samgelo? No, Sisi, no. Okay. Now, let's start with Usis. Yes. Galo Sugo, Mrs. Wa.
From SABC. Can I just get a clear response with regard to the decision that has been taken by the ANC, which is the highest decision-making body in between conferences? And Mr. Nia has mentioned that the group is made up of ANC members. Are you saying then that you are against the decision that was taken by the ANC that every ANC member must respect the commission and appear before the commission when called upon?
Number two.
Mr. Niehaus.
Samuel is also.
Oh, Mr. Niehaus, I'm failing to understand you because you're contradicting yourself. On the one hand, you're saying the judicial system in the country is prejudiced against the former president. But on the one hand, you're saying the judicial system should play its role in holding the current president of the ANC to account. Yet on this other side, the person whom you are supporting, who's seemingly pro-RET, you are saying that the judicial system is against it. Are you also not pandering into the factional divisions within the African National Congress in how you characterize the situation within the ANC? My question to you, I pose once again, why do you choose to support the SG and the former president and all those who are seemingly aligned with RET whom are being asked to step aside, and choose not to support those whom are seemingly perceived to be with capital in the country, e.g. the president of the ANC? Thank you.
Comrades, is there anybody who wants to respond? What we can clarify, comrades, is this. There's no contradiction between what Comrade Carl has said and what the ANC have said. We are strictly saying we do not support the decision that the NEC has taken. Remember, in the ANC, we are branches. And since we are branches, we are called a basic unit. And as a basic unit, we have got the right to defend the right of members within the ANC. So if we feel that what the NEC is saying, it does not cast in stone, we have got the responsibility because we represent the majority of the people. Those people in the NEC, they are there representing us. But when we feel that the decision that they have taken is wrong, we have got the right to differ with them. This is what we are doing. We are differing with that decision. So there's no contradiction around that. And then, Comrade Ubefuna Uta respond, Comrade Opa.
Can she repeat what he was
Oh, I think it was a she. And God has been addresses. Your question?
Oh, I was saying that as members of the ANC, who obviously abide by the rules and the constitution of the ANC is the highest decision-making body in between conferences. And over the weekend, they announced that a decision was taken by the ANC that everyone who is called upon to appear before the commission needs to get that, it needs to be respected. Yet now you're saying you are supportive of the former president's refusal.
Or the president?
Former president.
President.
Refusal to appear before the commission. So does that mean, and if I could just get it in very simple and clear terms, are you also disagreeing with the ANC or defying the decision of the ANC with regards to that issue?
Sure. I think we answered that one. We are stating very clearly that we differ with the decision that the NEC came out with. It's not representing us as the poor on the ground. In fact, it's representing those white monopoly capitalists who was there in Stellenbosch. And we feel that this country does not belong to Stellenbosch, where majority are being paid. We say it is us on the ground who goes out and fight the battles for these people. Ababaluisayo. So we are saying Umsholos is part of us, of the people that will go out and do door-to-door on a daily basis. The people that are talking there, they've never been to door-to-door. So that is the right of our people who are poor that we are defending. And we believe that Msholozi is these people, represent these people. Ace Mahashule represent these people. I can give you a typical example of this. We were out on door-to-door during the by-elections. SG was all over. But because they are seen all over, then people get scared and decide that let's cut their wings. And that is what is happening. We cannot allow our organization to be sold to the highest bidder. We will defend it. And that's why we are saying enough. That is why we are saying that SG and Msholozi and all other RET forces shall be defended by this group, this support group. Because its responsibility is to defend leaders that have been put out there as outcasts. And we can't allow that. They are part of us.
I'm so sorry on that, because it's just similar to what I just asked. So if you're saying you don't, recognize those people because they don't present, your members or people on the ground.
Let's correct one thing. Sorry, before you finish. I never said we don't recognize them.
My question, I'm asking that.
Okay.
Are you then saying that you can recognize the ANC as a structure of the
Okay, comrades, okay.
These are the people who are not on the ground with your members. They don't participate on the door-to-door. Does that mean you don't recognize them as that structure?
We never spoke about recognition. What we said, we have elected leaders, but those leaders must be able to represent the aspirations of the poor, not of those white monopoly capitalists. That's what we have said. And we are saying our leaders be shareholders to these big companies, Abo Nedbank, Abo Standard Bank, Abo FNB, who will inform them and instruct them what to say. We want leaders that will take from the ground what they need to say. So the NEC currently is not saying what we want to hear. It's saying something that should come from those that are rich, who cannot feel what we are feeling on the ground. That's all we are saying.
Comrade Oba, let me allow you.
Yeah, Thanks, Chair. I'll be wasting your time, my fellow colleagues from the media, to repeat what he has said. But let me give you a typical example and a stupid one, a stupid question. If you are coming for an interview, for a job interview, and in the panel, you have somebody that you know or you are related with, is it legal to continue with those interviews with that person in the panel? The answer is no, obvious, okay, because the person will be conflicted or you have a relationship with that person. So in the statement, Comrade Carl has mentioned to say, Comrade Ngamalala is not against attending the commission, but you are misrepresenting him intentionally, probably.
Yeah.
Comrade Ngamalala said it clearly to say, I will attend the commission, provided you, Mr. Zondo, you recuse yourself. Masses of the ANC, members of the ANC marched to Bramfontein, where Zondo Commission is based, to request his recusal in support of that statement, Sakamsholozi. Now, if you can do us a favor and ask the very same Zondo to say, Gahle, why are you not recusing yourself? What is your interest? Because we can all see Ugutu Zondo is so disparate for what he's disparate for. We don't know what he's disparate for what. But he's so disparate, he can't wait. He must just recuse himself. UJZ will attend the commission and answer what he want to answer. All the concerns that you have. Aniti, there's this term, I don't know whether it's an English or it's a legal term, the conflict of interest. Yeah, and we won't champion in any media that thing. Okay. Now, kuluma nge-issue ye-selective step aside here. The ANC is still debating that issue. Who must step aside? Magenze njani? Yini le uComrade uAce Magashule ekumele ayistepele aside abanye abangayenzanga. Now there was a word that says Ace Magashule has failed to do an oversight because everything happened at the time he was a premier. Now we're asking ourselves as these comrades to say, amanye ama-premier kuke kwenzeka izinto ezithize in their provinces. They are still premiers abanye. Are they so special to an extent that they cannot stand aside or step aside now? So singamamember ANC in good standing. It's just that lento esiyenzayo kusukudefy ANC, we are correcting ANC. And our intention, we are so jealous, we don't want our ANC to be fixed by opportunists and hypocrites. ANC will be fixed by us.
Yeah.
So, that is why I was born as Silana, and they were also saying, we have avoided, and can we request you, Namanya members of ANC who don't understand this thing. Don't drive us out of the ANC in this bizarre faction, Bantaba against the leadership that is there. We support that leadership. They are members of the ANC, we are members of the ANC. ANC allows for debates and engagements. So when we see what ANC is expecting them to do, that is our Sibonasila. And we are expressing ANC. But because of COVID rules, it's also showing.
All right, we've been broadcasting a live press conference from Bramfontein where the Jacob Zuma Support group has been issuing a statement for the from Carl Niehaus, who was saying they are active ANC members and he was not representing the office of the SG, who will speak for himself later on at a later stage. But he was just merely saying that there's a propaganda story in the mainstream media that doesn't represent the views of why Jacob Zuma will not appear at the Zondo Commission. And he says, they say narrow and insidious political agenda from people who declared war on Jacob Zuma in a factional way, and they must be exposed. So he referred to Advocate Bulelani Ngcuka and referred to the secret phone calls between Leonard McCarthy and former Minister of Justice Penuel Maduna, that they were planning the time to arrest Jacob Zuma before the Polokwane conference. And he said that President Thabo Mbeki did not like them for what they did in the ANC. He also referred to the British intelligence, MI6 intelligence, about the strategy on who must not become the president, and referred to other intelligence agents who were allegedly involved in that move. So he also talked about the assassination of Chris Hani, and he said that given that he was vocal about a push for economic transformation, and former President Jacob Zuma was intelligence head, he knew too much then, and he knew about those who were infiltrated within the ANC. So when he was talking about the assassination of Chris Hani, he said that it's not clear for now, after the investigation, who was involved in the assassination of Chris Hani, and those people must be exposed. And he talked about the presidency of Jacob Zuma having been undermined, and that the National Prosecuting Authority acted unconstitutionally, and also sanctioned the NPA's independence. Of course, he talked about Jacob Zuma's rights being compromised. He said the courts condoned, and the media also were willing to be allies to the Jacob Zuma must fall campaign, so to say. So he said this was to stop him from pursuing radical economic transformation. So much came out of that press conference, and of course, due to the constraints of time, we're going to have to take a break, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.